KCGM-TV presents, in association with the Nightscout Foundation, Are We There Yet? In T1D Tech. Tonight's episode is Nightscout Origins and What's Next at Bigfoot Biomedical. Episode 7 is coming to you live from the Silicon Valley with our special guests Lane Desborough, Ross Naylor, and Kevin Lee. Gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you. And
thank you. It's our privilege to be here. Thank you.
And Lane, would you like to introduce yourself, and then we'll just move to Ross and then Kevin?
Sure. I'm Lane Desborough, the co-founder of Nightscout and chief engineer for Bigfoot Biomedical, and father of Hayden Desborough, type 1.
Ross Naylor, algorithm engineer at Bigfoot Biomedical, co-founder of Nightscout as well, and I'm also T1D.
And I'm Kevin Lee, senior software engineer here at Bigfoot Biomedical. And I am the husband of Melissa Lee.
Type 1.
Type 1. Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of people don't know is the backstories on how Nightscout started. The press condenses it into the cutest child picture. And it wasn't until London that we talked a lot about Lane and where the motivation for Nightscout came from. Lane, could you just briefly touch on the idea, when you got the idea for Nightscout, and then how you moved about?
Sure. So when my son was diagnosed almost 7 years ago, I was working for General Electric doing remote monitoring of stuff. And when he was diagnosed, I thought, well, I should be able to remotely monitor him in his bedroom 20 feet away at night. And it just shocked me that wasn't possible. And knowing what I knew about how comparatively easy it is to remotely monitor, I got to the point where I decided not to wait and to figure out how to do it myself. Do you want me to explain more, or is that enough for now?
Can you briefly touch on Loopscout and Alarmscout?
Yeah, sure. So I was working in very large chemical plants and oil refineries, and there's a whole bunch of control loops in facilities like that, thousands of control loops, and they weren't being remotely monitored either. And so circa 1998, I led a team. I was working for Honeywell at the time, and created this service called Loopscout, and subsequently Alarmscout, which allowed us to monitor control loops in oil refineries and chemical plants and pulp mills and power stations all around the world. And so Nightscout is the son of Loopscout, at least from a naming perspective. And the fundamental premise of Nightscout was we just wanted to get some sleep. We wanted to not have to get out of bed 3 times a night to check on Hayden, and instead bring his data to us.
Yes, that's a part that I found extremely fascinating. Also, Ross, now you're hiding a lot of information about your participation in this, and you recently in your Bigfoot Biomedical advertisement talked about a lot of people don't know your portion of this. So give us, for the record, Ross's part in Nightscout.
Me, okay. Yeah, so I was working in industry and somehow got connected with Lane, and he said that he wanted some help with some JavaScript code in order to do this remote monitoring. And we started talking and started having passionate conversations about improving diabetes care. And after hours, I I'd go home, work on this, and then talk to him later, and we kind of just started creating this thing called Nightscout. And slowly, Lane started talking to more people about it, and there was code getting emailed around, and it just wasn't so easy to set up, and it was just something that people really actually enjoyed. So the decision was just to throw it out there on GitHub and start getting some instructions. I believe you were the first person that did the instructions, and really just try to get this out there. And it started to blow up. More and more people started using it, wanting to contribute. And then I started working with one of my friends, James, to get like the logo, the little friendly owl that helps keep watch. And I think that was a really good experience.
Now, what's James' last name? Can you give his information, because the logo is iconic, and just wanting to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, it's my good buddy. I've known him since second grade, James Ricketts. He's an unbelievable artist, and he did this all for fun, for free, and just to help out.
And I think that's really an embodiment or an example of how I view the Night Scout community and the We Are Not Waiting community at large, is that people are passionate about being able to contribute in whatever way they can. Yeah, even James, with what you were doing with the training, and Wes, what you're doing now, we all bring different skills and motivations and capabilities and experiences to fight a common enemy, which is type 1 diabetes.
Now, Kevin, you had been working on a similar solution for your wife, Melissa, and then you came into the Nightscout fold. Could you give us background on when you first started trying to tackle this problem, and then where did Nightscout come into that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say I actually first started trying to tackle this problem whenever we got our Abbott Navigator. I think that was around 2009. I was not successful in intercepting or getting the data off of that, but a little bit later, I would say, was it 2013 November or so, I decided to see what we could do. We had just received a new Dexcom. Went in and similar to what John did, John Kostick, I reverse engineered the protocol and wrote my own suite of tools to pull that off and send it up to the cloud and be able to remotely monitor it. That actually, after I shared that around with some of Melissa's friends, specifically Manny Hernandez, he got me in touch with Howard Look and Lane, and the rest is history there.
I find it interesting that one of Scott's talks is about many people had similar solutions, but a lot of them would solve it for themselves and it would never go on. The fact that the We Are Not Waiting movement became a community is a wonderful thing, because John Kostick, when I first met him, he told me multiple times, he goes, my code would be sitting in the closet if it wasn't for Lane Desborough. He was the one that championed, let's get that out there, let's give this to the people. And so when I think of We're Not Waiting, of course I think of the D-Data group where Lane came up with that. But more than that, Lane, you have tirelessly championed that throughout this entire process. And one of the things that I've noticed is, even though you're at Bigfoot Biomedical, you've been very accessible and open to helping us as we do things over on the Nightscout side. And so that is greatly appreciated. And we appreciate your time, the three of you, this evening. What was the hardest part for you, Lane, as you were working in the Nightscout side of this? What was something that really needed solving?
The hardest part. Well, it was tiring. I'll say that, because at the time I was the chief engineer for Medtronic, working on commercialization of the next generation automated insulin delivery. And I don't do things by half measure, so that was more than a full-time job by itself. And then, like Kevin and like Ross, who also had full-time jobs at the time, we would come home at night and start the real work and the activities that we thought were valuable and were making a day-to-day meaningful contribution to ourselves or our loved ones. So I think that was the hard part. And then it kind of morphed a little bit as more people joined the cause and said, hey, I can help with this and I can help with that. The challenge became, at least I'd love to get your perspective, herding cats. How do we channel this energy?
Yes.
These people who are extremely well-intentioned, but we kind of lacked a benevolent dictator. I was not going to be a benevolent dictator, and I guess in hindsight, that was good because it allowed this diversity in the ecosystem where all sorts of incredible things emerged that wouldn't have come out of the minds of any one of us. We were vibrating off of each other, all the watch faces, all of the different ways to store the data, to present the data. So I guess it's gone in a direction I could never have imagined. I don't think any of us could have imagined, what was that, 3 years ago?
Right.
It was 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how long it's been around. John was doing this John Kostick was doing this in the spring of 2013.
Right.
And it came together at the first D-Data in November of that year.
What I found was interesting, and the other reason we really need a We Are Not Waiting community was the video clip that we ran across from January 13, 2013, where Dexcom was showing the G5 transmitter in a bulletproof Android app at CES in Las Vegas. And you would have thought for sure that we would have seen that somewhere along the line. And for whatever reason, it didn't materialize, probably for some of the similar reasons that you became concerned about the speed of the Medtronic solution, Lane. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing the industry has hurdles that we don't have in the We're Not Waiting community. But now, Ross and Kevin, you were the uploader team prior to going to Bigfoot. You did that as your main focus in the programming. Can you give us information about you two working together in regards to the uploader?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I remember getting connected with Kevin. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Jason or Ben, but they said there was someone doing something similar, and he's doing an awesome job. So I got on a call with him, and we just talked about it, and I kind of took him over to the dark side.
We share very similar visions.
Yeah. And we worked really well together. And I don't think I kind of started helping out, or I started with Lane the remote monitor, but there was a lot of developers that were more interested in that part of it. So instead of just getting part of that, I didn't really know Java too well. I thought it was a great opportunity to learn some new skills. And it was great working with Kevin on that.
We really appreciated that. In fact, when Lane left Medtronic, and it first was Soft Loop. Was it Soft Loop, Lane? Prior to Bigfoot Biomedical? Smart Loop. I remember talking with my wife and saying the price of progress is going to be we're going to lose some of the Nightscout developers. And I said, but it is the progress part that we need, because we do have in the greater community the herding cat scenario. It's very organic, and on the plus side, we get 1,000 more thoughts and ideas than perhaps in a business structure, but it also lacks a business structure. So going from an open source project to a proprietary project, that has been one of the things where a lot of people had concern. A lot of people it was a stumbling block for them for that process. So, Lane, can you explain that process from your point of view?
Sure. So, I think about this a lot, that what we've essentially done is transitioned from working in the private good in a repeated N of 1 scenario to how do we serve the public good. And when you go from serving the private good to the public good, you have to pivot, and you have to embrace the regulatory frameworks that exist in this country. You have to be respectful of the FDA and the incredible value and responsibility that they have and that we have. So I don't think of this so much as proprietary as serving the public good. And that was difficult for me, and I think it was difficult for Kevin and Ross, and we had to make that expectation very clear to everybody that joined Bigfoot, that we are now in pursuit of serving the public good, and we will have to put down some of our tools in order to focus on that goal and get things to market as quickly as possible so that everybody can benefit from a reduction in the burden of living with type 1. What do you guys think?
I have similar feelings. I made the transfer just because I want to help make something for everybody, not just a specific subset. So just make it robust enough that everybody can just get it.
I couldn't agree more with my friends here.
So let's talk about your positions at Bigfoot Biomedical. Lane, what is your charge and what do you specifically do?
What do I do? That's a great question. When it was just Brian and Jeffrey and I, the co-founders, the very first thing that I was focused on was helping conceive of what it is that we wanted to build, and then thinking, how do we bring in the best people in the world to be on the team to build it? So in the first part of the journey, when it was a very small organization, it was figuring out the right thing to do and getting the right people on the bus to do it, and then that's transitioned and changed over time. Those who know me know I'm not afraid to do anything. So I will, at one moment of the day, be coding, and at the next moment of the day, doing something strategic. So it's difficult to pin me down on anything I do on a day-to-day basis. But I'm officially the chief engineer, which means that I am involved in all of the engineering things that go into the commercialization of a Class 3 medical device. And that is one of the most difficult things one can do in the world of engineering is develop a Class 3 medical device. It's a huge responsibility, and it's one that I don't take lightly.
When we were working with the University of Michigan, they brought in a consultant who was volunteering his time. And this was back during the days where the FDA considered we were Class 3 medical device. And he went through the steps, and he said, this is a $10 million project. And, he was going through this whole thing. So for us, when the de novo decision happened, it was a wonderful thing because there's just no way we could do that. And it's basically what you folks are doing, and for quite a bit less. One of the things that I have to say in a very, very positive point is when I was at the Bigfoot lair in the Silicon Valley, I was very impressed that it was not opulent like you see a lot of Silicon Valley companies where it was, just money laying here and there. It was very efficient. It was a place where I would feel comfortable backing these people because the money was going into the end result and not into the paintings on the wall of the CFO. But
yeah, you can't see it right now, but the microphone for this webinar is on a garbage can.
Making do with what we have.
We're hackers at our hearts.
Yeah. Now, Ross, what do you do at Bigfoot Biomedical?
I guess one of my major roles would be taking some of the ideas, the algorithms that we develop in-house, and running them through a simulation environment to ensure their safety and effectiveness. One cool thing that we're able to do here at Bigfoot is that we have a virtual clinic. So when we do want to have these ideas and we want to test them out, we have physiology models to population models and all that such, and we're able to simulate at about 100 million times speed up. So in 24 hours, we're able to simulate 100 million different patient days.
Wow. That is impressive. And Kevin, what's your job at Bigfoot?
So this is a startup, obviously, and we all wear many hats. I believe Lane and Ross alluded to that. My role here, I have worked on the mobile app for our controller. I've worked on the cloud services that support that mobile app, and I've played I manage the infrastructure for the cloud services, as well as I've been handling most of the QMS documentation.
Quality management system.
Excuse me. Yeah, quality management.
Wonderful. We have a question in that says, how can the diabetes community put pressure on some of the key nonprofits in this space to support small innovators like you instead of some of the mega corporations? We need this market to be filled with solid, fluid options, not one or two stodgy, this is what you'll get and you'll like it options. So what can we do as a community?
Well, I first of all absolutely acknowledge and we are so grateful for the support that we have received from various nonprofit organizations. Even if they can't always publicly say it, we're on the same team. Everybody wants diabetes burden to be reduced, and I can well understand that these systems take a long time to change. If you are accustomed to raising money and then dispensing that money to a traditional source of innovation, and now a new source of innovation comes on the scene, like Nightscout or We Are Not Waiting or a small company like Bigfoot, it takes time to start to change the way that you approach your advocacy and your fundraising and your nonprofit approach.
So all of the manufacturers of hybrid closed loop systems were at D-Data in New Orleans, and they spoke to us and said they wanted to work with the open source community, the DIY community. What does that look like to you folks, working with the DIY community?
I think I could, by example, when I was at Medtronic and we brought the Nightscout folks in, it's really how do we start to tap into what you said earlier, Wes, about the diversity of ideas and possibilities, and most importantly, the unmet needs. What needs aren't being served right now that are so important that you're actually going to go do it yourself? Because that is an incredible level of commitment and effort for somebody to say, look, you're not helping me with my burden of diabetes, so I'm going to go do it myself. That speaks louder than any words in terms of the unmet need. So at least from my perspective, what I take away is the approaches, the ideas, and most importantly, the unmet need. It's terrible that people are feeling that the only recourse is to go build their own artificial pancreas right now because that need has not been fulfilled.
That's an industry failure.
That's similar to Jeff's talk in New Orleans, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Now, what is next at Bigfoot Biomedical? What can we look forward to?
Do you guys want to answer that, or I could answer?
Yeah, go for it. Right now, we have CRC, and what's next?
Okay, so CRC stands for Clinical Research Center, and anybody who's interested in how one actually commercializes an artificial pancreas system can go to the FDA website and search for the guidance. There was an incredible guidance document created, actually in large measure by Jeffrey Brewer while he was the president of the JDRF and who is now the CEO of Bigfoot. But working with the FDA, an artificial pancreas guidance document was created, which is a blueprint for how do you get from A to B, and we are following that path. So it's public knowledge that just in the last couple of weeks we have begun clinical trials. So first human subjects who are in the clinical research centers experiencing our system for the first time. And what happens next is continued development and continued studies and commercialization.
Now, Andrew from Canada wants to know, how did you guys celebrate when you got the go-ahead for the clinical trials?
High fives.
High fives at lunch. Yeah.
That's true. We have not had a blowout party yet. We're busy. This is busy time. We're not taking the time, and maybe we should to celebrate what I reflect that we started with from a standing start 18 months ago to now nearly 40 people, about a third of whom have a direct personal connection to type 1 diabetes. And we're already in our first clinical trial 18 months after the start. Yeah. It seems slow because we're as frustrated as the community in terms of the unmet need, but we've gone faster than anybody I know. I agree.
Now we actually have a question for Kevin from Colleen Matson, and she says, I have T1 and have had it for 32 years. My 22-year-old daughter recently, in a heartbreaking manner, told me how much my condition terrorized her, to the point that she refused to go places with her friends since she was worried I might not be there when she got home. My husband has fears as well, but he has always been able to understand T1. How has the system, the Nightscout system, helped you and your family's comfort level?
Part of the reason that I was most interested in doing this project was my wife was pregnant at the time, and I just wanted a peace of mind that everything was okay. I worked for an airline at the time and spent some of the time on the road, and I just wanted a simple solution to monitor remotely. Just to get that answer without having to interrupt her day. And that's what Nightscout provided for us.
Now, Lane Hayden is now 17. How old is Hayden now? 15?
Yeah, he'll be 18 in a couple months.
Okay. So how has the Nightscout system functioned for you folks since you had it from the very inception?
It has functioned well. It's been a lifesaver for one, and not only and this is something that the community echoes as well. It went far beyond its original, very selfish intent of helping us get a better sleep. Yes, we got a better sleep, but having it in the kitchen at dinner time and being able to help us as a family understand cause and effect of meals, of understanding where the blood glucose was prior to dinner and saying maybe we can pre-meal bolus to get ahead of that a bit, or an ability to watch him at school and help him be safe and succeed at school, or to be able to go to a friend's overnight for the first time. So these are stories or examples that are not new to anybody in the community. But what might be new to the people in the community is this was not possible 3 years ago. What we seem now to be so obvious enablers of leading a somewhat normal life with type 1 diabetes. This was not possible 3 years ago. This was not possible before Nightscout.
Now, we have this solution coming out in the APS for Bigfoot, but what are you folks doing in the meantime personally? Are you able to participate in the trials? Are you excluded because of the ethics and the governmental regulations? How are you folks bridging the gap?
We are not. So emphatically, because it's the law and it's the right thing to do, and it would be a distraction to our commitment to the public good, we are not doing anything with our system. As much as I would love to hook this up to Hayden right now, that is not possible. And it's actually, I'll be honest, a little bit frustrating because I get to wear this around and check the use conditions and the reliability of the Bluetooth radio and the interactive design of the app, but he doesn't, and he's the one who's in danger right now. So it's a sacrifice that we all made in the commitment to the public good, and I wish it were different, but we're working so much that we don't even have time to sort of hack on the side. It's sorry, you shouldn't feel sorry for us, but do you agree?
We don't. I go home from work to work to try to get this out.
So is anyone running any of the open APS, or are you folks just focused on Nightscout and using that until the Bigfoot answer comes out?
Nope.
All righty. We have another question. Speaking on design, I am curious about the product that is in clinical trials. What pump and CGM are combined? Does the AP include glucagon? Does the user need to input carbs or meal boluses?
Kevin can answer that question.
All right, Kevin.
So the pump does not include glucagon. It is just a 300 mil Humalog cartridge used in pens.
It's a Dexcom CGM.
It's our pump, but it's originally the Asante pump.
Yeah, the Asante Snap.
Yeah. So just as an example of the we are not waiting and the moving fast, we had the opportunity just over a year ago to acquire the assets of Asante Solutions, which made the Snap pump. And at the time, before that opportunity came along, we were so impressed by the Asante design. We were thinking, how can we work around the brilliant thing they did to be able to take a pen cartridge? The simplicity of it, the ability to just click in. You don't have to rewind and prime and fill reservoirs and get the air bubbles. You don't have to do any of that junk. You just pop this thing in. So we were so impressed by the elegance of their design, and then this opportunity just landed on our lap. And it accelerated us about 3 years. We didn't have to build an insulin delivery system. Instead, we could just repurpose some of the work that they had done, make it so that it's a Bluetooth low energy connection to a phone. And so we focused our effort on those parts and didn't have to make the tremendous investment, because that had already been made by Asante, the actual insulin delivery system.
Are you aware of any studies in regards to the regular use of glucagon?
I don't want to be disparaging of glucagon. What I will say is that one of the, in fact, the number one system design principle we have at Bigfoot is to make something as simple as possible, and the second is to make it as affordable or as accessible as possible. And glucagon isn't helping us with either of those things. It's been demonstrated that you can achieve remarkable results with insulin alone. You don't have to buy a second hormone. You don't have to worry about the long-term complications. Potentially of the chronic use of a second hormone like glucagon, and it was going to slow us down. And so we made the decision very early on to pursue an insulin-only system.
Now you spoke about simple. Can you explain to us about APS as a service?
Absolutely. So I think many in the audience appreciate that you got a supply cupboard full of stuff, and when you run out of one of those 10 supplies, it doesn't matter whether it's lancets or strips or insulin or reservoirs or transmitters or receivers. There's a panic, and you're phoning up your doctor. They're phoning up to get the letter of medical necessity. They're going to do battle with the insurance company.
Oh man.
And this is not simple. This is the opposite of simple. So just imagine, if you will, a concierge service where, by virtue of the fact that we actually can measure the amount of insulin being consumed and the number of days left on the CGM, because it's all going through the phone, we can automatically deliver to your door what is necessary to achieve the results of effective glucose control. So that's where we're thinking beyond the product into how do we simplify the disease itself, the burden itself. It's not just filling up the reservoir. It's the hassles that your doctor has, the challenges that many people face in not even having access to endocrinologists that are sophisticated and have the motivation and ability to change the settings on the pump. How do we reimagine the entire experience of living with diabetes? And I would assert that we're sort of in a pretty good position to do that because we live with it every day. So we don't have to go hire some market research company to go investigate and interview people with type 1 diabetes. We just turn to our coworkers or ourselves and say, this is a hassle. How do we make that better? So we're able to, I think, move pretty quickly and be really focused on the things that are a hassle for people living with type 1.
That's really well said. The disease itself, type 1 diabetes, just grabs my heart and just compresses it. But the amount of work that my wife does on a daily basis, and myself to a very smaller extent, but what she has to go through to do and accomplish what you're talking about is nothing short of horrific. It just truly diminishes the person's quality of life overall because you are literally banging your head against a system that, to quote Mark Wilson, it's upside down, built by people that do not have it. Just the fact that we have to tell the insurance company that our son still has type 1 diabetes. It's like, and every year...
The answer to that question was sometimes no. Yeah, absolutely. That's...
and every January getting a letter from the insurance that says, CGM will no longer be covered. And then the weeks and months going into the appeal and, okay, we will, So a service in that regard would be a huge selling power.
Well, Wes, just to build on that a little bit, one of the other reasons that we are committed to developing a service rather than a product is that you're then committed to actually delivering an outcome, right? You can sell a fool a product once. You can't sell a fool a product, or fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. With a service, you have to actually deliver sustaining value. You have to deliver outcomes, and We are so sure of our ability to reduce the burden of living with type 1 diabetes, whether it's improving time in range, whether it's reducing DKA or severe hypoglycemia. Developing this as a service and launching as a service allows us to essentially put our money where our mouth is.
Nice. Now, are you going to have ranges hard-coded? Some of the APSs coming out have hard-coded ranges. Are you going to have user set ranges, or are you going to have very hard-coded ranges?
So I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. We actually think we've got a pretty cool solution to this challenge. And it goes back to our third principle, which is all about, how do we make sure that safety is incorporated here? Because, there's good reasons why these limits are hard-coded, and that's actually part of the guidance. But if one recognizes that the overarching objective of this is to maintain safety, and if we have an innovative way to be able to maintain that safety, we think that we'll be able to approach things from a different and innovative perspective.
We have another question from Andrew in Canada. He says, once Bigfoot is at the point of final clearance, will there be a simultaneous submission to Health Canada as well as the FDA? Is there a big difference in the process for you folks?
Well, I guess many people probably don't know I'm actually Canadian, and so I'm very proud of the contribution that Canada made to the world of diabetes, about 96 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so nothing would make me happier than to do a simultaneous launch in Canada. What I would say is that we are a lean company. We're moving quickly, and all options are on the table. But our goal is to get this to as many people who can benefit from it as quickly as possible.
Wonderful. Now, what about the EU? What are the plans there?
I would answer that the same way as I answered the question about Canada. If we can get to the greatest number of people as quickly as possible, then we'll go there as well.
Wonderful. Outside of your own firm, which we're all very excited about, what else do you see that excites you in the T1 technology world?
I think we're having trouble answering that question because our head's down working on our stuff.
I was about to say, this is proof that you're engaged.
What other world?
Wonderful. Well, at this point, if anyone else in the audience has a question that they would like to ask Lane or Ross or Kevin, you can go ahead and do that. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the service that you're talking about is if you take care of the people through a proper service, you'll have the profit. And so people service profit as opposed to some of the other upside down ways we are seeing the industry try to hammer the round peg in the square hole or the square peg in the round hole. It's almost like we don't exist. And only those that understand and have this get it. And I understand people's inability to grasp T1D. My wife's college roommate had a son diagnosed for 12 years prior to our son. And we were supportive, we were understanding, we were right there. We totally got the T1 problem. And then when our son was diagnosed, I looked at my wife and I said, we have been the worst friends for your college roommate. I mean, we knew nothing about this. So I realized that unless you live with it, you most likely won't get it. And if you do live with it, you have this huge burden in addition to everything else you're doing. So it's kind of like the burden club. So anyone working to alleviate that has high marks in our books. Anyways, we'll take a look to see if we have anything else from the group.
While you're doing that, Wes, I wanted to circle back on a comment you made about profit.
Yes.
I hope it's clear to everyone that we didn't do this for profit. We all we could be doing something else right now, and so we chose this as an opportunity to help the public good, and I don't think any of us regret that at all. This is the place we want to be. We are privileged to be able to be making a difference in this club. You called it the Burden Club. I completely agree. I also had no appreciation for what it was like before I was in the club. And one thing I'll say about the club is it's a club you never want to be in, but once you're in it, there's a whole bunch of really good people in it.
Amen. That's true. We have a question from the group. Can you say anything about how open the system or service will be?
So first of all of us are staunch in our belief that my disease, my data. If I'm authorized to see my own data, I better darn well be able to get it, and that is something that we absolutely believe and have at our root. When you start to then flip to the other side of the coin about launching a Class 3 medical device and all of the risk that entails, it becomes more complicated. Mm. And so I would sort of deflect the question a little bit and say that we are absolutely aware of the myriad complexities associated with that question. Security, privacy, risk, and we're taking them all under careful consideration. This is a topic that is oft discussed. And then the other thing that we need to be very mindful of is that everything that we're doing that isn't directly related to our primary goal of reducing the burden for the greatest number of people possible is delaying that. And we remain fit. So I wouldn't say that we're not going to get to it. We're just focused on something else right now.
All righty. Here's another question we have come in. Would you consider making the interface available to the OpenAPS community, allowing them to use their own algorithms to drive the pump?
Everything is possible. It's a question of when, and it's a question of what is the regulatory environment that would allow a public company to do that in a safe way. And so I would say that the FDA has been an incredible partner to the diabetes community at large and to Bigfoot specifically. They are incredible. They're helpful. They get it. They're coming to all of the major conferences. They are interacting with the community. They're just wonderful. It's been a step change in their posture over the last couple of years. And so in coordination with them, if that makes sense to do and to open it, then absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that answer, and I know a lot of the people in the group do also. That's as much as anyone could ask for, what you're talking about. And in regards to the FDA of 2013 in the diabetes is not the same one we interfaced with in New Orleans during Mark Wilson's presentation. The fact that they are there and literally, the participation level of the FDA has been wonderful. I don't know if outside of the diabetes or outside of the departments we interface with, if they have moved along past 67 or 1968, but I do know that the diabetes department and all of those that we interface with, it's a completely different story. And that's a strange concept for a lot of people that have issues with government or that have issues with the FDA based on what happened just a few years ago. Just the whole change in classification from 3 to 2. I understand the difficulties of phase 3. I mean, that's above and beyond and gone for a lot of the community. It's just a ton of regulation, but how they have progressed.
I was just going to say, Wes, they have such a challenging job where even software is now considered a medical device. And so now you've got 100 million people who could potentially write software in this country. And how do you enforce and ensure safety of something like that? Or cybersecurity, or the internet, or the use of consumer electronic devices as part of a medical device. These are brand new and challenging topics for the FDA to embrace, and they've done a fantastic job. They publish these guidance documents, they solicit input on them. The Nightscout community and the We Are Not Waiting community and CGM, like, you have helped advance and partner with the FDA in things like the recent non-adjunctive panel that happened with Dexcom a couple of weeks ago, where an incredible patient voice was brought to bear, and a tremendous victory for Dexcom in their ability to be able to dose insulin directly off of the CGM. And it's thanks to the community and the FDA's openness that happened. And of course, the fact that Dexcom's a fantastic system.
Another question from the group: with so many players active in the field, or who have at least stated they were involved in APS projects, do you think we'll see significant differences in results? And what are the metrics you are focusing on for HbA1c, hypos, averages, etc.?
So, just channeling my friend and the president of Bigfoot, CEO of Bigfoot, Jeffrey Brewer, who during his time at the JDRF funded millions and millions of dollars of research in this field.
Right.
He came to the conclusion, as have the rest of us, that these are all so much better than the standard of care. To have closed loop control of insulin is so much better than open loop, what we're doing today. Going to sleep for 8 hours and hoping things are going to be okay, versus having something watching continuously and making adjustments to insulin. So in terms of the metrics, we're interested in time and range and A1C. But the thing that we're really focused on is are we reducing the burden? Because there's a lot of people already achieving very high time and range, very low A1C, but they're working really hard at it, right? They're carb counting to the gram, they're on a restricted diet, they're exercising. Not that that's a burden, but the point being, how do we help people where they are achieve a reduction in having to think about diabetes so much, reducing the cognitive burden, reducing the emotional burden, reducing the take a day off. These trials are incredible. People get a day off of diabetes, and just imagine what it's going to be like to have a life.
We do have some pretty bad feedback starting to go on now. We would like to thank Lane and Ross and Kevin for their initial work and help in the Nightscout community, and also for their strong support for We Are Not Waiting, and of course for their great work at Bigfoot Biomedical. We thank you so much, and we'll catch you at the seminars and conferences coming up later this year. Have a good evening, gentlemen. We would like to thank our guests Lane Desborough, Ross Naylor, and Kevin Lee for speaking with us tonight and for being great examples of We Are Not Waiting. We would also like to thank Melissa Lee of Bigfoot Biomedical, James Wedding, and the Autodesk Corporation for their help in making this episode a reality. This has been a Nightscout Foundation production. Come change the world with us. Learn more at nightscoutfoundation.org. In association with the Coexist movement, let your voice be heard while you still have a choice. And in association with CGM in the Cloud, Open source, open data, open hearts. Caring for you and your loved ones around the world and around the clock. We now return you to your regularly scheduled life, already in progress.